Thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Craig Mauchan. I'm joined today by Brandon Robinson, who is our Director of Customer Success. And I didn't mention I am a VP of Sales. So what's the problem that Sortspoke focuses on? It's where you have teams that are processing documents, reviewing PDFs, looking for certain pieces of information that they require in order to complete a downstream business process. There's lots of problems with that. It's expensive work. You don't really want your underwriting team doing that kind of mundane work. It takes away time that they should be doing underwriting. And of course, everybody makes mistakes when they're typing or transposing that information. So what is Sortspoke? We're a cloud-based data extraction tool that uses artificial intelligence, in fact, proprietary artificial intelligence and machine learning to turn your documents into data. Generally, we focus on and deliver a couple of key benefits. One is we boost productivity of your existing teams. We reduce the risk by reducing the number of errors that are incurred by that manual data transposition process. And we improve turnaround times where time to market or time to response is very critical and helps you earn more revenue. So when to choose Sortspoke? This is really critical. There are lots of tools out there. Where we focus is on the most difficult documents, the high variation, the unstructured documents, where you need 100% data accuracy. Typically, those are operations use cases, as I mentioned earlier, and in the underwriting space, and where those documents are very complex and don't lend themselves well to templates or pre-programmed solutions. Where do we help with various insurance teams? In fact, we help a variety of different carriers, both in life, P&C, and specialty markets. On the life side, we help with applications, lab test results, APS, attending physician statements, diagnostic reports, all kinds of complex documentation that accompanies life insurance applications. In the P&C space, we do a lot of work with applications, commercial applications, and renewals, both in the mainline and specialty markets. We help surety carriers with reviewing financial statements and assorted supporting documents. And on the claims side, we also do work with loss runs and first notice of loss. I mentioned a little earlier that we're focused on unstructured documents and high variation documents. We're a little different than most other data extraction tools. And the first place that we are different is that we defer to, or our baseline is that we keep a human in the loop. A couple of reasons for that. One is that the documentation is so complex that it requires that we keep that subject matter expert, the person who knows the documents and knows the nuances of those documents and the data within them, in the loop in order to get you the accurate data. So other tools are fully automated. They'll build a template, they'll pre-program something. They will use existing templates that they have developed through using data from other customers, and it's a fully automated process. It's a black box. It's an opportunity to feed documents into that black box and cross your fingers and hope the data comes out the other side. That's not the way Sortspoke operates. Our approach is 100% accuracy at 90% automation. So we'll give you the 90% of the automation, but we'll get that data 100% accurate each and every time for your team. How do you go about using Sortspoke? It's easy. Choose any document, literally anything from contracts to invoices in any language, whether it's structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. There's no templates to set up. You simply load the documents, start showing Sortspoke where the fields are that you want to extract. And Sortspoke is like that underwriting assistant that sits behind you watching and very quickly realizes and understands that this is the job that you want done, and it's going to start to do that job for you. We do all types of text, whereas some solutions do one or two, whether it's unstructured text, unstructured text blocks, or individual fields, whether it's semi-structured text, structured forms, tables, or handwriting. Sortspoke can handle all of these. We also do checkboxes. And as I mentioned, in particular, we do tables of data. So if there's financial statements and structured data within those tables that you want to get out, we can help you with that. So when it comes to risk management, human in the loop is a much better option for most of the carriers and most of the MGAs that we work with. Number one, because it's more auditable. It avoids that black box problem where there's no accountability for the quality of the data that's coming out the other end. It provides full data traceability, and we can show you that in the demo. And it helps you proactively manage risk. So you're getting a much higher quality data using a Sortspoke solution than you are with a templated type solution. One particular example I want to share with you today is a new business submissions where a carrier is using Swordspoke to process incoming commercial submissions. Manually, it was taking them somewhere, a very experienced underwriter, about 6 minutes to do the data extraction work of that application in order they could get the data to feed to their underwriting system. Using Sortspoke, it's taking them approximately 1 minute, making their underwriters 5 times more productive. There's a range of other benefits that are listed there on the right-hand side. But one of the ones I will point out is that the staff loves using Sortspoke because it now automates a part of the job that they really didn't like to do. But the other part of it that's super important here as well is that it's given capacity back to that underwriting team that they didn't have before. So they don't have to go out and hire new people. They don't have to train new underwriters. They are able to handle increased demand, increased submissions with the existing underwriting team. Brandon, over to you.
Thanks, Craig. I just want to touch really briefly just on a reminder that the question and answer panel is open, or if you want to put any questions that you might have, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to come to them before the session is over today. So if there's anything that we're talking about that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, please feel free to do that. I'm just going to switch my screen here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a demo of Swordspoke. As Craig mentioned, Swordspoke is a cloud-based tool. Pardon me. Swordspoke is a cloud-based tool where you get the opportunity to process any kind of document, whether it's a really structured document like application forms, even Accord standards are fine, to things that are much less standardized, financial statements, loss runs. We do a lot of work in a lot of different industries in addition to insurance, including things like legal and contracts and just words on pages as opposed to anything that's got some sort of rhyme or reason to it. And one of the examples where we run into this a lot actually in new business submissions is when brokers or agent channels are sending in submissions to the underwriting teams at the carriers or at the MGAs, and they're just sending you an email. And it's like, hi, my name is, I'm asking for an application for, person X. They may have a policy. I'm looking for these coverages. Here's kind of a general outline of maybe the kind of coverages I'm looking for, the specifics of that business if it's a commercial submission. And what we find is it's some combination of the email body, the attachments that may come along with it, whether those attachments are application forms, whether it's that carrier's application, whether it's an Accord, whether it's some other carrier's application, because you kind of get all of them. And then you have to, kind of be the Sherlock Holmes of all of this and find all of the little high value pieces of information as the underwriter or the triage, the underwriting assistant, as this information's coming in the door so that you can get it into the quoting system so you can make a determination on whether or not this is the kind of application or this is the kind of risk that you want to put a quote forward on. And where we've had a lot of conversations in the last little while is the pressure on the underwriting teams has increased as there's a lot more volume, there's a lot more competition in the market, but there's not a lot more underwriters to go along with that. So one of the challenges is kind of you have this workforce that's already maxed out. You got to find a way to help them get through and prioritize the kinds of applications and submissions that you want to work on faster. And that's where a tool like Swordspoke really comes into play. As Craig mentioned earlier, our approach is to try and keep the human beings involved in the process so that they can bring their subject matter expertise to bear. And you can couple that with the speed and efficiency gains that you'll get from a system like Swordspoke to help you increase the efficiency or productivity of that team. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You try to get something like 100% accurate data off of every document, whether that documents the financial statements, whether that documents the application form or some other supporting data, so that you can get the humans to do the art, science, math of the specialty underwriting to get all the information into the system to make a quote. But what we also hear a lot is we can't get to every submission that we get every day. There's just too many coming in. We can't quite get through all of them in a regular day, or by the time we get back to them, it's probably too late. We've probably lost the opportunity. So where we've been helping companies with this problem right now is trying to help them get to a faster triage version of taking a look at the information in the application that comes in, taking a look at the supporting documents that come in, and get you the highest value pieces of information. As an example, when we're looking at things like the application form, you may only need 10 or 15 pieces of information to kind of determine, is this the kind of risk that we want to even consider doing a quote on? So you can kind of start to think about quick declines. You can start to think about where you want to do market reservation. And you only need every product is obviously a little bit different, but if you're looking at it from, specialty line or surety line, maybe just the address of the project, maybe just the description of the operations of the business. There's certain kinds of risks that match your profile better than certain ones that don't. And if you can pivot off of those few pieces of information faster, you can actually get the right quotes into the hands of the underwriters a little bit faster, get them working on that data a little bit faster so that you have a better chance at increasing the revenue through that channel without having to just add more underwriters, add more bodies to the mix. So the way that Swordspoke works is at the beginning, it doesn't have anything in it. So it's actually blank. You'll come in and you'll create your different types of documents. That's what we call these labels over here on the left. And then over here on the right, we'll go ahead and create the fields of information that we want to extract from each document. And at the beginning, again, these are not preset. You get to create any fields of information, extract any data that you would like. And your users actually just do the process of highlighting the information with their cursor and saying, hey, here's the piece of data that I'd like. And as they use their cursor to highlight the data instead of typing it, a couple of things are happening. One, this data will become available as structured data as part of an output file from SortSpoke. But two, that's also how they start to train and inform the machine learning model that's going to be custom built just for this particular use case for this customer. And as they go through more documents, you quickly go from the place where you're doing a bunch of highlighting to a place where you're just doing a bunch of review. And right now, the way that I'm looking at these documents is I've processed a couple of these so far, and Swordspoke's like, hey, here's where I think the answers are. Please go ahead and review them. And as I go through, as I'm checking things, if I find something that's missing, I can go ahead and add it. If I find something that's incomplete, like the effective date is partially correct, I'll just say, hey, nice catch, but not quite. It's an opportunity for me as a user to make the final decision on the most correct version of these pieces of information. It's a really powerful combination of the users do the highest value portion of their job, but every time they do something, Swordspoke gets a little bit better and a little bit better as it learns through the information that it's working on. And that's the case for documents that are very structured, like these application forms. It's very much the case in documents that are highly varied, like financial statements. We're looking at E&O, D&O, cyber, that kind of thing, where you're getting a lot of information out of the company financials. And we've seen the range of company financial statements, everything from audited financial statements produced by a large accounting and audit firm to the local accounting firm down the street that kind of made your balance sheet, your summarized financials. And it's amazing the variety and the difference in these documents. And Sortspoke makes it really easy for the users to go through, find the data that they want, make the decisions on what's most correct. And again, every time it happens, Sortspoke's helping you learn to do it a little bit better and a little bit better. Great example of where this really comes into play is things like loss runs, particularly in the underwriting channel. There's a lot of data in each of these loss runs. You could have 10, 15, 20, 30 pages of claims sometimes, or you could have a document that says no claims against this policy. There are no claims for this period of time. And we have the ability for you to be able to handle this in any combination that you might have. In addition to grabbing kind of the high level information around the policy, maybe that this entire loss run applies to, you can also go through at a claim level and grab as many unique pieces of information as you might need. And then as there are more and more claims, you can just go and continue to grab that piece of information as you're going through it. And it's really simple for the users to just go through and use their cursor and say, here's the information that I'm looking for. And as you continue to do this, like I said, a couple of things are happening. You're getting the data directly out of this document as soon as you finish it, but you also have an opportunity to train Swordspoke. So before too long, you're going to be in a place where we're actually going to be suggesting the values to you. Instead of the users just manually hunting and pecking, we're going to be saying, hey, we think here's some of the information. And your users are going to say, well, that's part of it, but actually you missed a little bit. So this kind of hand in glove approach where you're getting started, rapidly building the model that makes the most sense to you and getting to a high quality output in the first few documents is absolutely how we work. And then you get to a place before too long where every time you do a document, it gets a little bit faster and a little bit faster. And like Craig said earlier, the goal here is to try and improve the life of the underwriter, try and take some of the mundane data entry off their desk, but also give them a way to get the highest quality, the most accurate pieces of information out of these documents so they can move it on to the next step in the process and start to triage and start to do the quoting, which is special work that only the underwriters can do. We're here to help them do the part that is a little bit more mundane and a little bit more repeatable. Just to summarize, Swordspoke is a very straightforward kind of workflow. First, you send your documents into the system, then you sort them or classify them into different types. And I've kind of jumped through a bunch of different documents today already, from applications to financial statements to loss runs. And Swordspoke will actually learn how to classify these documents differently as a first machine learning step to say, hey, this one is a lab, and I just say, hey, Swordspoke, this kind of document is this type. And as I do that, Swordspoke starts to learn about the context of the information found in these documents. And as I'm doing that, we'll start to suggest it to you. And we'll say, hey, we think this is an AutoDeck page, or hey, we think this is a lab result based on the information that you've given us before. And then as soon as you say, yes, this is the correct kind of document, that's when we start to look at the field level information and start to make those suggestions. Early on, our goal is to try and get the user close to the correct piece of information. Like I saw here a minute ago with the policy numbers, I didn't necessarily get the entire perfect answer right away. We're trying to make a productivity uplift as quickly as possible. So if we think we can get them really close and the user just has to add or subtract a little bit to make it most accurate, that's a great starting point. And then and that's in the first 20, 30, 40 documents. And then as you see them start to get rolling, the precision of the exact accuracy of these suggestions will start to increase. Every document goes through that same flow, bring it in, sort it, extract its fields, and everything culminates in pressing the big accept document button down at the bottom, which then sends the document out of the system. It gives you the structured data file, which you can then download. You can integrate with our REST API and send our information into the next step in the process, maybe the quoting system, maybe you're sending into Guidewire, into Policy Center, something like that, so that you can then automate even further as the workflow continues after leaving Swordspoke. So that's kind of Swordspoke in 5 minutes. I'm going to take a minute now and just kind of describe to you a little bit about where we fit in the overall mix of a workflow. Again, if you have any questions, do feel free to drop them into the chat or into the Q&A section. Swordspoke is here to help you with this, what has traditionally been the speed bump in lots of workflows like this, where the only thing that's kind of slowing you down is there happens to be a bunch of pesky documents, and the only way to kind of get the data out of them reliably is by having human beings review them and then do that data entry. When you start to look at us as a solution and you put us in the middle of the workflow, the opportunity starts to present itself that you can automate additional steps on either side of this process, in addition to speeding up the work in the middle. And some of our service partners actually work with customers today to try and help you automate the ingestion of information into Swordspoke. And some examples there are, maybe you have like a common general inbox where all of the new business submissions show up. What we're working on right now with some of our partners and some of the other carriers and MGAs out there are taking the information that comes into an email submission, turning it into one big document, sending that into Swordspoke, and then the user will go through and say, here's all the information, whether it was in the body of the email, whether it was in the attached application form or supporting documents, or a combination of both. The underwriters will do their smart thing and figure out where the data is, and Swordspoke will help them get that done a whole lot faster. And then as soon as they're finished, they can then take the exported data, the JSON file, or the data that came out of these documents, and ingest that information downstream. You could do, as I said, anything from sending it into an Excel file and just working on it on your desktop directly out of the user interface, or sending the data directly into something like Guidewire so that you can automatically create the framework of the quoting data that the user would start to work on. So instead of them typey to get that done, the data is actually going to be able to be ingested for them. So lots of opportunities start to exist around where this fits and how it can help the team. In addition to just speeding up the data entry portion, because it's a technology solution that lends itself well to wedging in the middle of this kind of workflow, there is a significant amount of opportunity to increase the return and the productivity on either side of it, to try and help the underwriters or the claims processors and whoever they might be to try and get through more of the information while doing less and less work. Quick note on Swordspoke, as we mentioned, it is a cloud system. We are built for enterprise. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies here in North America. And just a quick nod to security and compliance. We know that right now that everybody is always keenly aware of making sure that data is safe. It's our highest priority is to make sure that everything is encrypted and secure for all of our customers at all time. We work hard on making sure that everything's available and encrypted at all times, as well as as passing industry standard certifications, things like the SOC 2 standards, and performing best practices like having annual penetration tests and things done is really important to us. So when we say we're a cloud-based tool, we're a cloud-based tool that's actually built for enterprise, and can be compliant with any framework that makes the most sense, even for the largest IT and compliance organizations. A lot of people always ask me, how do I get started? How many documents does it take to get working? How is this going to work if we do this or if we try that? The easiest answer is let's try it out together. We're always open to, giving you the opportunity to get your team, your documents hands-on in the system and actually try things for real instead of us just describing it to you. We don't really want you to take our word for any of this. We'd rather you be able to get in there and do a test with your subject matter experts and see the real results for yourself based on your efforts. And I really want to stress this. This is not a technology tool built for technologists. This is really a business self-serve tool that we put in the hands of the underwriters, the end users, the folks that are really smart about the documents, and make it super easy for them to be able to get it up and running and make it work. Our goal here is to try and help you generate a return, build an ROI that makes a business case make sense so that you can explore this as an opportunity. And we have customers that do this as quickly as inside a single quarter. This doesn't have to take 18 months of capital projects and service integrations and lots of specialists to make this work. You just need a little bit of time from your production staff. You need a little bit of support from your IT organization, and you can have this thing up and running and making a significant impact in as quick as a single quarter. Craig, I'm just going to check in with you and see how we're doing on any questions and answers you may have come across.
Yeah, actually, Brandon, there are a couple. And again, we just want to encourage you, if you do have a question, stick it in the chat or the Q&A section of the webinar. The first question that came up was, do you use other people's data to inform the learning on my particular use case? In other words, I think what the question is really around, if the use case is similar, are you using another client's data to inform my model?
That's a really great question. I'll just answer it as plainly as I can. The answer is no. Swordspoke doesn't do any of what's called transfer learning. Everything that is contained in an account for a particular customer is unique to just them. And that's a little bit different than you may experience in other areas where machine learning is occurring. Lots of other technologies that use machine learning generally have to rely on enormous sets of data to be able to train a model to make it work effectively. So as an example, if I wanted to sit down in front of those financial statements, or if I wanted to sit down in front of a reinsurance treaty, or if I wanted to sit down in front of a loss run, if you've come across these kind of solutions in the past, they will say, hey, it works out of the box on these kinds of documents. And the reason that's the case is because they've probably trained it on millions of samples of each of those kinds of documents from various sources, including your competitors, including your documents. With Swordspoke, the way it works is you train what you want, the pieces of information that are most important to you off of your documents. And at no time is that information shared or used to inform anybody else's models. This is a self-contained world in which you're living as you create things that work, as you create the list of fields and the secret sauce that you're using to do your underwriting. All of this is unique just to you.
Cool. Related question, I think, Brandon. This one actually came up twice. How long does Sortspoke take to learn?
That's, if I had a nickel for every time I get asked that question, I'd have a whole pile of nickels here. The interesting thing about that is it's a little bit unique to each use case. And when I say use case, it's probably what kind of documents they are. But as a typical rule of thumb, in 100 or 200 samples of documents, Sortspoke is able to provide you suggestions on your fields. As you may have seen in my demo a few minutes ago on some of the documents, I was getting suggestions on a bunch of different fields. It doesn't take thousands and thousands of documents for you to get this up and running. There's not kind of two discrete times in using Swordspoke where it's like, right now I'm training and then later I'm using it and then I'm going back and retraining it. It's all in one. You make it work, you train it, you use it. It's all the same step. And as Swordspoke is constantly learning, it learns really, really fast. A great example that I came across recently was I was working on some loss runs with a customer, and they did it in about 300 samples. And these were pretty complex. They were pretty long. There was a lot of data. they got to a really high degree of productivity lift from those documents. They got down to about 10 minutes a loss run, and these were really long loss runs. And that only took a couple of business days. So, you can kind of, on the short end of things, you can kind of get Swordspoke really up and running in a couple hours, depending on the complexity of your use case. That is, how long your document is and how many fields there might be. Might take a little bit longer, but somewhere in that 100 to 200 documents range of trained samples, you'll actually start to see a lot of activity. You'll start to get a sense of the trend of how Swordspoke will perform for you over time.
Awesome. Thanks, Brendan. Another question is around what about our pricing model?
Sortspoke is based on volume of documents that you may process through the system. So there's no like traditional licensing fees for users. There's no kind of server fees for it, like, being available to you because it's a SaaS model. It'll generate around the prices for it will generate around the kind of documents that you process. So as we go through that evaluation, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we'd like to get folks actually trying Sortspoke and take our word for it. What we'll do as part of that process with you is help identify a little bit more specific information about your use case, kind of what the edges of it are, how many of them you're going to process a year, how many folks do the job today, and try and help you come up with a rough order of magnitude for that return so that you can start to build a budget for it.
Cool. Another question here is, do you add confidence estimation regarding handwritten OCR?
It's a great question. Sorry, I didn't show any handwriting today. I just totally forgot. The way that we handle any OCR, whether it's the handwriting or turning an image-based PDF into readable text, the only OCR that we're talking about as it relates to Swordspoke is making characters on a page legible, and then doing the Swordspoke work, which is the machine learning and the algorithms on top of that. We don't pass a confidence score out as part of the output saying, hey, this is how confident we were on the text that was found on the page. There are some clues that we give to the users in the user interface saying, hey, we feel good or bad about a particular piece of information. And we highlight that for them in terms of how well we feel we did on the character recognition. But I really want to stress that because Swordspoke is intended to be operated as much as possible with a human in the loop, you generally don't need to be as worried about how well did the system read this character correctly, because if it's incorrect, the user has the opportunity to adjust it. In the scenario where you're likely trying to do a little bit additional automation, Swordspoke has the capacity for you to increase the automation based on the suggestion confidence scores. So if we made a suggestion to you and it's a 90 or higher, you can set any fields values that you like. You can automate further than and maybe just handle exceptions, and those exceptions could include, hey, maybe the characters weren't as clean or as crisp as you might want. But I really want to stress, we're not trying to make this a straight pass-through system on every use case. There are parts of use cases, there are kinds of documents where our customers today do a lot of automation and straight pass-through, but typically we're looking at the kinds of use cases where expect to keep a human in the loop. And one of the benefits of that is if a character that's handwritten is kind of messy and it sneaks through, the users get the opportunity to try and make an adjustment to what the output information is going to be, instead of it just, as Craig said earlier, pass it through, cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Brandon, I think we got time for one more question, and it's an interesting one too. Is that what happens if I've trained Swordspoke on, say, a couple of thousand documents, and I get a brand new document with that the Swordspoke has never seen before? What's going to happen?
Well, that's a really interesting scenario. So this is one of the really cool things about how Swordspoke works. Whether it's document 10, whether it's document 100, 10,000, a million, it's always learning new things as it's going along. If you happen to be lucky enough to work in an industry where nothing changes, let me know where that is. That'd be awesome. But in reality, what we're finding is that you're always introducing kind of varieties of similar documents or brand new formats. Maybe somebody changed their template wholesale one year just because. The cool thing about the way Swordspoke works is you will handle it just like you would any other document. Swordspoke's going to actually let you import that document. We're probably going to suggest, hey, we think it's this type. We're probably, on the first document, maybe not have a lot of suggestions for you because we may not have seen that particular format before. But there are chances, if you've done 1,000 or so documents, there's probably some part of that document where the pattern of it, even though it's on someone else's letterhead or it's someone else's document, there's probably something in there that we figured out before and we'll give you a suggestion on. But in the event that it comes in and it's net new and you've never seen it before, and you just go ahead and tag all the information information on it. And as you show Swordspoke 3 or 4 or 5 more samples of that same variety over time, will pick up real quick and start to help you find suggestions quicker, help you get to that data more correctly. And that's the case whether, as I said, like it's the 10th document that you've processed, or if it's the 1,000th document you processed. The users, the subject matter experts, stay involved to make sure that they can handle those new varieties. And there's no, hey guys, we need to crack it open and call the vendor and make a new training thing happen. It's just handle it, make it work, and you'll get the data out. And we'll start to train it as it sees more of those examples.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions, Brandon. Thanks for that. In wrapping up, I want to thank everyone for attending. And our final thought here is that we're very focused on, as I said, these very, very difficult documents, high variation documents. And we believe that for your operations processes, your best people, your subject matter experts, the people that know your customers, your brokers, your products, and know the nuances of the information that they're extracting are your greatest asset. And Sortspoke is designed to aid them, to help them, to relieve them of the mundane work, to help them get through and process those documents much faster so they can do more of what you're paying them to do. So we put the easy and powerful, as it says here, artificial intelligence in the hands of your business users and give them control of how they work. That's really what Sortspoke's all about. I want to thank everyone again for attending and look forward to chatting with you soon. Bye for now, guys.